Hello, everyone. My name is Gail Estella. Welcome to the Gail Estella podcast. Ooh, this podcast is going to be a little different for me today. Last year, I did an unveiling, and the unveiling was You May Know Me As. And I introduced myself to the world as, hi, my name is Gail Estella, and I'm an addict. So today, for this podcast, I'm going to be interviewing two people that are very special to me in my life. I am celebrating myself today. Mm-hmm. On January the 22nd, I celebrated 32 years of sobriety. In NA, we say I celebrated 32 years of clean time. So I'm celebrating myself today. We have shared stories of struggles behind addiction and grief. But now is time to unveil another side of my struggles, a struggle that many people endure, but they hide in silence because of shame and embarrassment, the way that I did. So I'm going to start off with a person that is very, very, very dear to me in my life. I have my sponsor, Terri McClerklin, here beside me. And on the other side, I have my Narcotics Anonymous boyfriend on the other side of me. And I will tell all about that story once we start the podcast. Terri, I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself.
Okay. Thank you, Gail. I appreciate that. My name is Terri, and for the purpose of the podcast, I am a recovering addict. My recovery came through a 12-step program. I endorse 12-step programs. I have 32 years of clean time of recovery. My substance use at the time was cocaine, crack cocaine. I thank God for that. He gave me he took my addiction and he gave me a ministry. And for that, I'm truly grateful.
Wow. Okay. My Narcotics Anonymous boyfriend, Maureece Jones.
Well, I'll say good afternoon to everyone, and thank you again, Gail, for inviting me. My name is Maureece Jones, Jr. Been in the recovery process since December 1st, 1993. I have 31 years clean, and I've worked in the substance abuse field for about 28 years. And actually actively still participating in that process now. So I'm glad to be here.
Me too. And the two of you got a little ahead of yourselves, because those were some questions I was going to ask, but that's okay. Now we know. So let's start off this way. You said that you have 32 years.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And it's so ironic because you were my sponsor, and I still consider you my sponsor.
That's right.
And we have the same amount of clean time.
That's right.
Now. We'll tell that story. And Maureece, you have?
31.
31. Mm-hmm. So, for the audience, if there's anyone out there struggling with addiction, amongst the three of us, we have over 35 years, not 35, but 95 years of sobriety. 95 years of clean time.
That's right.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. Mm-hmm. So let's go back to the beginning. Because I met both of you through Narcotics Anonymous. I went to treatment, and in treatment they tell you get a sponsor, go to 30 meetings in 30 days, do not pick up no matter what, do not get in a relationship for a year, keep coming back. And I think for me, the only thing I did was I kept coming back. Right. Because everything else, I messed it up. But I remember going to a meeting, and it was suggested that I get a sponsor. You need a sponsor. And I went to the meeting, and I saw you get out of a burgundy Saab. I drove, I drove a Fiero. So I picked my sponsor based on the kind of car she drove.
Okay.
Status. Because I could identify with that. Not the fact that we were both in a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, that we were struggling with addiction. I chose you because of your car. In our relationship, because I remember that first meeting and asking you about being my sponsor, and you told me there were some things I needed to do. And I can't even remember if I did all of them. I probably didn't, knowing who I was and what I was at that time. But getting clean for me was hard. It was very hard. I made it much more difficult than I needed to. Because I didn't follow the suggestions. So how important is it? I'm going to go ahead and take this earring off because it keeps falling out and I don't want it to be a deterrent. We got too much good stuff to talk about.
Okay.
How important was following the suggestions for you in the beginning? How important was it for you to get clean and stay clean?
I think the following suggestions it's not an easy thing when you've been in addiction for a while, because you're coming into something new, and even though I had been clean, I had never used. Let me say it that way. I still wasn't used to living clean after 8 years of using and being in the streets. And I think following suggestions, actually, you got to give yourself a break because you did follow the suggestions. And we don't follow each and every little detail, but the reason why you have 32 years clean is that you kept coming back.
I kept coming back.
You kept coming back. And the reason why we have a relationship is because you did use me as your sponsor. We developed a relationship, we built trust, and you trusted me. And those are more things that's significant. When they talk about sponsorship being the heartbeat of the 12-step program, I think you utilized a sponsor to the degree that you were supposed to. And so that's how you got where you are now. So you give yourself some credit. You did follow the suggestions, and it's not an easy process, but I'm glad that you did, and I'm glad that we have the relationship that we have, because it's very important in my life as well. It's a two-way street, and some days during those times when I would need you and the information that you would give me, and that helps me stay clean. And in the program that we're in, we talk about the only way we can keep it is by giving it away. And so that was the opportunity that you gave me during that time.
Oh, thank you. I remember the first time I relapsed. My ex-abuser and we went to Charleston. And I bought a bottle of wine. And when they say one is too many,
1,000
and
is
there's
never
1,000 is never enough, I can just remember drinking that bottle of wine so fast, like I was chasing something. I was chasing that feeling of the drug of my choice. And I wasn't getting it. And I came back and I told you that I'd used. I didn't know I relapsed. I didn't know I relapsed. And you said, "Hey, you need to go to a meeting to pick up a white chip because you just relapsed." I'm like, "No, I didn't." Because I didn't use, I didn't smoke, I didn't use. And you said, "Yes, you did. Alcohol is a drug." Alcohol is a drug. And I went and I picked up another white chip, the first of many. The first of many. So for you, Maureece, how important was it for you in the beginning of the program, early on, to follow the suggestions? Or did you?
I did. I did follow the suggestions in the beginning, but I followed the suggestions with questions.
You were that person.
That is you know, we come into this program with the mindset. Myself came into this program with the mindset that I had enough intellect to do those small tasks that you said that I needed to do. And what I was forgetting was the things that had happened prior to me coming in. How many times I said to myself that I wasn't going to do it no more, that I had enough, that I was sick and tired of myself, that my family was tired of me, that my so-called friends were tired of me. And so when they got to the point, see, I was faced with a dilemma. The dilemma is known as jail. And because I had spent several quick outings in, somebody bailing me out, going in, somebody bailing me out, not prison, but jail. Spent so many times doing that. By the time I got to the program, I was ready to do something, if not everything. And so my start was, it was difficult, but I weighed in on the fact that the first sponsor that I had was someone who worked in the facility, who had already kind of nurtured my spirit. And when I say that he nurtured my spirit, meaning that he did a thing that I could identify with. Part of the thing that I could identify with was the fact that God will carry you if you allow him. And so, because I had that habit been inbred in me, but it was a battle. But when they told me simply say, well, keep coming back. Well, you know, I came in, they were smiling and feeling good and looking good, these people. And I'm not believing that they were actually on drugs. I'm also not believing that they're actually clean like they say they are. So I'm going to go long enough to see them pull it out. They got to be doing something. Because I couldn't imagine that feeling when I first heard someone say to me, I've been clean for 5 years.
I know.
What?
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
so I did follow direction, but not all of them, because I told them, I said, no, I don't have to do all that.
And I remember the first time meeting you when you said come in, and I remember the first time meeting you, we were at a meeting, and you came in. I remember exactly what you had on. You had on a white wife beater. That was the era. You had on jeans, Timbs, and you had a red bandana.
Around my
Yes, yeah. Bandana.
And I said, Terri, look. I said, that's the kind of man I like, right? And that was the beginning of our relationship.
Yes.
You were my
Yes.
boyfriend. And I like what you said about your intellect, because the program is so simple. But a lot of times people come in and try to intellectualize
Exactly.
the program, and we can get in our own way.
Yes.
And when you said about the person that you picked as your sponsor and what he had, I can remember going to meetings in Laredac, and I saw Lori O. And I just thought she was so powerful in the way that she spoke. And I remember sitting there saying, I'm going to do that one day. I didn't know what the process entailed. I didn't know that it entailed staying clean, for one thing, you know. But I just liked it that she seemed like she had so much power and so much poise. And I'm like, I want to be like that one day. I want to be like that. And I start looking at people mimicking people that they would come in after I came in. They would pick up a 30-day chip. I'm picking up a white chip. They would pick up a 60-day chip. I'm picking up another white chip, you know. And it just seemed like I couldn't get it together. I'm going to read the first step. We admitted that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. It doesn't matter what or how much we used. In Narcotics Anonymous, staying clean has to come first. we realize that we cannot use drugs and live. When we admit our powerlessness and our ability to manage our own lives, we open the door to recovery. Powerlessness and surrendering. How important was it for you to surrender?
Let me just say that I'm clean through a 12-step program, and that's not, we're not representing that program, but we certainly were gotten clean through that program. So that's the way we're talking. And surrender for me, it was very important. But there were some things that were said that didn't make sense when they talked about surrender to win, and surrender would be the key to getting clean. And I had to remember, what am I surrendering to? And so I had those questions as well as the Maureece, I can imagine. What is it I'm supposed to be surrendering to? And it was difficult at first. It's easy to get clean, but it would be difficult to stay clean as we grieve, the drug, which was quote unquote our lover or whatever you want to call it. It was a little difficult to stay clean, and I didn't always stay clean, because I didn't always surrender. I wanted to take my power back, so I had a relapse as well. But that's my concept of surrender.
Maureece?
And I'm agreeing with you as well, Terri. But what I was able to grab hold to was some things that clinically they were saying to me, because like I told you, I wanted to intellectualize so I could buy into a concept when they were explaining to me that I suffer with what is called a disease. Now, learning about myself through this 12-step program is a thing that abides in me. It's called vanity. So for you to say to me that I have a disease, then I instantly got a problem with trying to receive any further information, because I'm immediately defensive and saying, I don't have a disease. I don't have a disease. What are you talking about? And they do it in a comparison to having diabetes, having certain forms of cancer, and that what the disease I had was treatable. But one of the first things that I had to do was stop using. That's the surrender piece.
That's the surrender.
In order for anything else to work when you're trying to get your life back on track or to get a new life with recovery, the thing that you have to do first is stop. So I got with the concept that they told me. They said, well, there are 6 things of the concept of addiction that you must be able to learn to apply. One of the first ones is to understand that it was primary. Okay, primary means that if I didn't address the issue of using, then nothing else is going to work. Okay, so that brings on the, like you were sharing about the relapse mode, is that because I'm not allowing myself to get clean long enough for the other stuff to work. They say that it's something that it gets greater when you continue to do it. So they had to show me examples of how that it had progressed. I started out really enjoying the process. It was fun. We were having a good time. It was good. We smoke a little bit, drink a little bit. Good. We go to parties, we dance, we enjoyed ourselves. I did it, all my friends did it. So, I didn't see that part where it had became so progressive that I didn't have the friends anymore. I didn't want to even be around them. My love was the actual feeling that I got from using. And then so it affected more than myself. They say it's a family disease,
Of course.
And I'm failing to see the part about how it was fatal. It was killing people. the many funerals that I've gone to, the other people that have been affected by it because of some drug transaction that went bad.
It went bad. Mm-hmm.
You know, the intent was only to go cop, or that I'm so in desperate mode that I'm going to rob.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those kinds of things. So many people are affected by how the disease worked with me. And so when I start to recognize those things, because, you know, you have to put that stuff out there. My head was hard.
Mine too.
Hard-headed.
Wait a minute. Stop. Have you purchased your copy of Through It All? If you haven't, I am encouraging you to do so. Everything that you've heard in this podcast and everything that you're going to hear in this podcast is directly from this book, Through It All. You can go to Gail Estella Facebook, Gail Estella 1 on Instagram, and Gail Estella Speaks on Instagram, or you can DM me, Gail Estella, on Facebook. Now back to the podcast. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about the progression,
Mm-hmm.
I like to call it an imaginary line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can you recall when it was fun
Mm-hmm.
and then you entered into full-blown addiction? Can you recall that?
Yes, I think I can, and just kind of piggyback off of what Maureece was saying. It got to a point where I wanted to stop, but I couldn't stop, and so I didn't understand it. And then once I was in a place where it was explained to me that I had crossed that imaginary line of addiction, and once I crossed that line, I wouldn't be able to go back to that social using,
Yeah.
or when it was fun, or when I, enjoyed it, because some things began to happen, and it impacted my family, and it impacted my life. And I've also as well gone to jail and did things that I would normally do, stealing and lying and cheating, and even within myself, I knew something wasn't right. And it had gotten to the point where I couldn't even get high anymore. As it progressed, I couldn't get high anymore. And I don't mind saying, because this is truth, and I'm sure other people feel it as well. Suicide had become an option
There you go.
because I didn't know that there was another way.
Another way out.
Right, and so I thought that, even though it wasn't like I really wanted to, it just had become an option. And I remember that last night, that last time when I said, God, if you don't get me clean, I won't make it. And that's the progression, and like Maureece was saying, it's chronic, and it takes control. And those are the things that happen, as you begin to just keep using and increasing in tolerance. And it was just not self-care. I just didn't take care of myself. So I knew that something was wrong in that arena, but still trying to go to work, maintain my job. But I knew I had gone and treatment several times because the disease had progressed to that point where I didn't even know myself.
That's real.
I remember crossing that line. The person that I was involved with, he used. We snorted. He smoked. And I tried smoking. I could never get anything out of it. And one of his friends that come here, he came down from D.C., and he had an apparatus. And I tried it. And I still remember that feeling. I had to go to work. But the whole time I was at work, the only time I thought about was, I need to get back home. I'm ready to, I need to get back home. And like you, eventually, it would keep me from going to work. Or I would go to work and make enough money and leave work. I can remember being at work and someone paying me Or me, I might have asked for the money before I did their hair. I left work. I didn't come back. I didn't go back to work. But my clients stayed. I don't understand, they stayed, but I just think about that in the progression. And when you said after a while, you didn't feel the feeling. It's like I'm still chasing the same feeling. I'm still chasing it, and I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it. And it became so ugly for me. I felt I didn't have any control. I didn't know who I was. My parents, trying to find me, the chaos that it caused in our home. And I remember my youngest sister, and she told me this maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. We were talking about something about childhood. And I'm like, well, Vu, you had a good childhood. She said, girl, all that chaos, that went on in our house when you were out there doing what you were doing. She said that was not a good way for a kid to grow up. I didn't recognize that.
There you go.
So I had to, when I made amends before, I didn't think about my baby sister. That's right. Seeing me where I was supposed to be the role model, the person she wanted to emulate. But my character was not a person that anyone would want to emulate. Ooh. So relapsing. How many times did you relapse once you entered the program?
When I initially entered the program, I was able to get 18 months, and then, but I knew I had what we call a reservation, so I knew that I would go back to use because I was thinking, well, now I haven't used in so long, I can get that same feeling I had from that first high. And after that, I just picked up a lot of white chips. I don't know, it was just so many times, but it was in such a short period, though. It was in a 3-month period where I just kept going out, picking up white chips. And then I finally said, well, ain't no sense in picking up white chips. I'm just going to use, I'm just going to use. And finally, came back, and that was the last time. But I relapsed probably about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Probably more than that. I wouldn't be surprised. Actually, when you really think about it, I wasn't really relapsing. I was just continually using it. I might take a break and go back and go back. And so, yeah, after the 18 months, I might say that I was relapsing. But after that, I wasn't relapsing. I was just having lapses in periods of using.
And you were my sponsor at that time. And you came and you picked up a white chip. And I still want you to be my sponsor, I still, because you were my person.
I tell you.
Because I remember coming to you one day telling you, if I only just had someone to love me. And this is when I was in an abusive relationship. If he would just stop abusing me and loved me, I would be okay. And you say, baby, don't work that way. It's within yourself. People can't fix us. And I could go to you, and you were always so gentle with me.
Thank
you. And you nurtured me.
Thank you.
And so when you used, it hurt my feelings, because I'm like, how my sponsor going to use, How's she going to use? And I didn't know enough that I still wanted you to be my sponsor. And someone said to me, she can't be your sponsor anymore, because basically we had the same amount of clean time.
Right.
Yeah, we had the same amount of clean time. So with you relapsed.
Well,
did you relapse?
Well, my thing was no. And I'm saying no because I learned in the process of recovery that in order to relapse, really, we'd have to have something to relapse from. You know, building this thing called recovery takes me being able to implement understanding of powerlessness. I had to be able to implement coming to believe that I could be restored. I had to implement, and this is working with a sponsor, that, you know, it is now, God is now in charge, you know. Take my will in my life, guide me in the process. So for clarity purposes, even though being new, we think we've relapsed, actually what happened with me after 90 days, I decided to drink a beer because I told myself that beer wasn't something that I had been doing. Okay. And I was hanging out. See, this program tells us about, and this is for people who may be struggling.
Talk to the camera.
Okay, this is about changing people, places, and things. And like I said, myself being the person who intellectualized a lot of stuff, changing people, places, and things is that I wanted to count out the fact that, well, if I go to Atlanta, for example, and I used to use in Columbia, then if I go to Atlanta, I can still go to those same places. And that's not what the literature is talking about. The program is talking about when it says change people, places, and things, it means everything. Everything. And so, no, I didn't relapse, but I continued to use. After 90 days, I used, I lied, I went directly back to the old behavior, smoking crack, stealing, breaking in people's cars, doing all kinds of things to get one more. And within 4 months, I was back in jail. And that was actually my saving grace.
So were you ordered by the courts to go to NA?
No, I was not. I was ordered to go get some help. They didn't directly send me to NA. The judge said to me, 10 years you're being sentenced to for armed robbery. And then the judge said that I'm ordering you to go get some help because I know that you have a drug problem. And so the court said as long as I was on probation and getting paperwork signed getting paperwork showing that I was complying with staying clean through probation, that was what I had to do. And that was the first 5 years of my recovery. That they told me, as long as I didn't have to get paid that fee, what's the fee with
Probation.
Yeah, with probation. And none of those things I had to do as long as I was showing that I was clean and in a process. So I went directly back to treatment, and that's when my journey started. That's when I surrendered. That's when I said, oh, no, I don't want to go back to jail.
So you remember the last time you used?
Yes.
Do you keep it where in your brain?
Normally it hits me around, it's surrounded by a date. Because on November 30th in 1993, I went on a super binge, along with not just myself, but a couple other people. And we were robbing, smoking, robbing. And I remember very clearly that I was accused by the police of something that I didn't actually do that night. I was accused by the police of that. That's something that I didn't do. So I went in like I was the boldest attorney of myself, dressed up and all that I thought. For him to say to me, well, you may not have did that, but we have you on video. And, you know, back in those days, we had the big VCR square thing. They slung it on the table in the investigative room at the jailhouse. And I surrendered. I said, you got me.
Can you remember the last time you used?
Of course, I do. I do, and I think it's important to remember it. And I say that because I was told that I want to remember it so that I won't go back to it. But what was important and what was significant was where I was mentally and emotionally. Like I said, suicide was an option. And I remember where I was, and I remember what was going on, and I can say that, you know, this addiction is just so cunning and so baffling and sneaky that it's just amazing how your mindset, you can tell yourself a lot of different things, but I certainly like to say that I do remember, and I still remember.
I do too. I remember. And I know every month I had a calendar, and I would mark off my clean days because I can never get the 30 days.
Okay.
I could never get 30 days. So I would mark off each day. Like, I'm going to get 30 days. Right before 30 days, I would use. Right before 30 days, I would use. And the last time I used, because during the time of my addiction, that part of my addiction, I was in the abusive relationship. And we used together. So not only was it the using, but it was the abuse. And they came hand in hand. And not only was I trying to get myself clean, I was trying to get him clean as well.
Okay.
Because I felt if we could do this together, then we would be together and everything would be perfect. And the last time he called me to a hotel room, and I went, and I entered the room, and there was the drug of my choice, crack cocaine on the dresser. And you know when they say that God never puts us in a situation that he doesn't give us a way out?
Route of escape.
Yes. He went to the restroom. That was my way out, but I didn't take it. I stayed and I used. And after we got finished using, he rubbed me. He said, now we have the same amount of clean time.
Oh, God.
Wait a minute. Stop. Have you purchased your copy of Through It All? If you haven't, I am encouraging you to do so. Everything that you've heard in this podcast and everything that you're going to hear in this podcast is directly from this book, Through It All. You can go to Gail Estella Facebook, Gail Estella 1 on Instagram, and Gail Estella Speaks on Instagram, or you can DM me, Gail Estella, on Facebook. Now back to the podcast.
What do you call it? Misery loves company.
So I'm like, this is a setup. And I fell for it. And I remember lying on the bed in a fetal position. And I was just trembling. And around a certain time, I got up and I went to a meeting. Because like you said, it didn't matter how many times I picked up, relapsed, I always went back and picked up another white chip. And I remember going to the meeting, and I sat in the back of the meeting. And then Glenn was the moderator for the meeting that day. He was leading the meeting. And he said, the last chip, the most important chip, if anyone wants to start a new way of life or you want to surrender to your old life. And I got up, and I walked to the front. And all eyes. And they were like, and if anyone remembers Elmer always kissed the women on the cheek. Elmer looked at me, and he walked away from me. And I remember Glenn saying, this is the last time I'm going to give you a white chip because you're going to kill yourself. That was my last time using. But I stayed in the relationship. I stayed in the relationship a little while longer, and that's for another story. But when the rooms say play the tape all the way through.
That's right.
Don't glorify it, but think about after it ends. Whew. So, with the amount of clean time that you have, both of you, would you date a person that uses? Record.
Is that for Terri?
Either one of you. You're married. Yeah.
No, I'm not married.
Oh,
I'm
would
divorced.
would you date a person that uses?
Actually, no, I wouldn't date a person that uses. I wouldn't date a person that drinks. I wouldn't date a person that smokes marijuana, and certainly any illicit substances, because I don't want to put myself at jeopardy, because I know that when they talked about having the disease, that I could very well think that I might be able to do it and find myself in a situation, because I've already placed myself there, and be triggered. And if I'm around a person that's drinking a lot, or not even a lot, just having a sip of wine, I just won't. I don't want to put myself in that a situation, because I realize that this is a life and death situation. I either want to live or I want to die, and today, I want to live, and so that's not an option for me.
How about you?
You know, my thinking does not allow. I participate in the things like, I don't want to call myself even a dater, to be honest. I don't have a lot of those kind of intimate relationships, but I do associate with people that use. Now, there is the thing that I've learned through being in the clinical process, also being for my own personal association by believing in what my sponsor enlightens me with, is that, what I've been able to do is to set boundaries on how far I'll go when it comes to people that are using. No, you're not going to smoke no crack around me.
Okay.
If I get a whiff that that's what's going on, I'm out of there. I do not associate with those kind of people. But it's something about the social dynamics that goes in the world that has to deal with drinking. Now, I don't drink, and I don't make a mockery of anybody who drinks or even overdrinks.
Right.
But I'm sometimes faced with the dilemma of having to interact with them. And like I said, I do boundaries. I got family. My family continues to use bloodline, close people that I love. But I have to set limits. They don't have to set limits. I have to set limits. And in my setting limits, I may go to the event, but it's just long enough for what I'm there for. Because my first sponsor taught me, always know my motives for where I'm going.
Yes.
What am I going for?
Yes.
And so
that's
me
good.
knowing what my motives are is like, it may be a baby shower, it may be someone's birthday. I got a little gift for you, got some love for you. I'll holler. I'm out.
And that's when we go back to people, places, or things.
Yes.
Because there are still streets here in Rock Hill that I do not drive down. I do not tarry in those areas at all. And there are certain, bank accounts that I have where most of my money is. I do not have a card. I do not have access to that bank that bank account. Because I can go anywhere and innately know where there's drugs. It doesn't matter what city or what state.
That's right.
I can always tell, okay, if I wanted to,
I could.
that could be it. Yeah. So that's good. Yeah, that's good, because the people, places, and things,
It's real.
it is very, very
Yeah.
real. Because for me, I don't drink any type of liquid cough syrups, anything that have alcohol in it. Or I don't drink it. Do you?
No, actually I don't. But if you don't mind, permit me to say, Maureece brought up a good point, and in talking about being around people that use, I have to be very careful as a licensed addiction counselor that I don't allow my clients to tell me where they cop.
Okay.
I don't need to know it. But now in my addictive state, sometimes I kind of want to know.
Yes, right.
And I have to remind myself, you can't allow them, and I can't allow them to glorify certain things they tell me, but they can't tell me where they go and get it, where it is, because a part of me, when I really think about it, a part of me would still want to use if I could keep the cars, if I could keep the house if I could still save the money, but I know that the disease of addiction is just what it is, you know. Exactly. And it's fatal.
It's fatal.
It's fatal.
It would take you out. It would take you out.
But that was just a point that I wanted to make.
And that's good. That's good. So when we talk about that, because sometimes the person will say, if you say, okay, I'm Gail, I'm an addict. Well, why do you consider yourself an addict? Or haven't you been clean enough, long enough that you don't have to consider yourself an addict? But for me, I tell people that I still have the utmost respect for my addiction. I think I respect it more now than I did earlier because, like you said, I have more to lose. And I know for me, because even when Asia died, one person called me as a therapist. She said, well, do you need anything to help you sleep? I'm like, no.
A therapist is doing what a therapist does.
Yeah, I'm like, no. And then my friends were calling, well, are you okay? Do you think you want to use? But I knew, for me, if I used,
What would happen?
I wouldn't come back. I didn't have, at that time, I didn't have a reason to come back. I know for me today, if I use, that's it.
No.
You might as well bury me.
It made me think of another point for me is that in 2014, I lost my son that I had raised from a child, and he was a drinker. Very rarely did he smoke cigarettes, but I mean, he didn't smoke weed or anything like that, but he was a user, and he had other issues. What we fail to see sometimes that people suffer with co-occurring issues. My son dealt with symptoms of personality disorder, and in dealing with those kind of symptoms, he had made it to a state where he was willing to at least get an assessment. At least that's what he shared with me, because I had to tread lightly, because a lot of times that kind of stuff brings on anger. And then you got to look at the fact that he's looking at his dad, who's one who is clean in recovery, and what he would always make clear to me, I may have a problem, but I ain't no addict. I ain't no alcoholic. I'm none of that. But I do have a problem in my thinking. Something be wrong with me, he says. But to see him die from the physical condition, because this thing of addiction is physically, mental, and spiritual. And in his mental state, that I was most concerned about, even though when he, with or without the alcohol, he still had these problems. To get the phone call that he had died from a heart attack in his sleep because he suffered with sleep apnea was a dart in my chest. That in my trying to work a program, and the program then told me that no matter what, I must not use. Now, I want you guys to know, using was not on my mind. That's not the part. The part was that when we talk about the steps and when we say we let go and we let God, and that, he's in charge of all things and all the feelings that come with that. And as much as I said, I'm done with it. I don't know if you guys have ever heard people say, look, I left them in the hands of the Lord. I'm done with it. You know what I'm saying? Whatever happens is on them. That did not end up being my reality, being a man in recovery. All those feelings I thought I wasn't going to feel, I felt them. Did using come up? No, it did not. But the pain of the loss that I thought I wasn't going to feel, I was overwhelmed. I was succumbed with it. I was devastated. And all I could think about was that if he had only listened to me, if he had only did what I suggested, if he'd only used the machine that the doctors had for him, a CPAP machine. He had one at 2 different girlfriends' houses and his mama's. And he was at the 3rd girlfriend where he didn't even have one.
Wow. And when you're saying about the pain.
The pain.
I remember calling you during the time Asia used. And then I remember you saying, baby, just feel the pain. Just feel the pain. It's all right. Just feel the pain. It's not going to kill you. Just feel the pain. And when you can feel the pain, and you don't numb the pain, and you don't mask the pain,
I feel the pain.
and you know that your options could be fatal, so we feel the pain.
And we've been given that information, you know that, right? Well, a lot of times, even we go back to years, we've been clean for years, and we still have to go back to those early stages where sometimes we got to just sit on our hands and rock with it and just thank God.
Whew. This has been good. This has been good. This has been good. I want to talk about your clinical, your professions, but for the sake of time, we don't really have time for that, because one question was going to be that, do you ever see yourself in your clients? Or do you want to just...
That's an easy answer.
Or like you said, listen to the stories when you know you don't need to listen to the stories. So do you feel that way sometimes too?
All the time. I've had many times I've been faced with only by God's grace did I go out. When I hear that, and wish that I can kind of like inject them with the fact that if you just allow God to keep you away from the first one, you will be amazed at the transition that's going to take place for you.
Yeah.
Ooh, one day at a time.
Yes.
Yeah. And if I can just say real quickly, just to add, when you talk about seeing myself and my clients, a few other things that come along with addiction called co-occurring disorders. And so I can see those mental health issues that I have as well, because they come along with addiction, and I can see myself in those clients. And sometimes I have to kind of just monitor my own mental health when I'm talking to my clients, because we can end up with the countertransference, and we have to be very careful in the field, dealing with clients and wanting them to get clean and wanting them to do something different, and it doesn't always happen that way.
It's like our loved ones, our family, you did for me.
And I've lost clients. I've lost clients, and it hurt.
Yes.
So what do you do on a daily basis?
On a daily basis?
Ensure your sobriety.
On a daily basis, at this point in my life, I live a spiritual life. And so on a daily basis, I'm making sure that I'm praying, that I'm turning things over to God, that He's number one in my life as opposed to the drugs, that I'm reading something spiritual every day around people who are clean and changing that whole process, and just managing my thinking, my mental health. It's very important, very significant at this point, So those are the things that I do to make sure that I'm clean, and I wish that one of the important things I want to say is that I have gone to treatment several times, and I think that that's an important component to put between some time between me and the streets, because it's not anything that you can do alone.
Okay. So for you, what do you do on a daily basis?
I'm actually... I tell people I'm retired. I like the sound of that. But actually, I stay involved. I do have a God of my own understanding today, and I still go to some other places where worship is real.
Oh, yeah.
And when I say that it's real, is that, it's been that peace that since being in recovery that I've been able to, what they say, feel the power of the Spirit working in my life. I've felt it, and I used to think that was fake for people. And so one of the things that I do daily is that I do something to help somebody without them knowing that I'm helping them.
Wow.
And that's been beautiful for me. I still get a lot of contact information for people who are seeking to get people in treatment facilities and all those kinds of things. You know, I have people coming to me, people from church, people from my family, you know, people just from old jobs, you know, saying, do you know a facility that does this, that, or that? And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But it keeps me abreast of the fact that this thing called addiction is real and that help is available.
Help is available.
But there's got to be some willingness on our
We
part.
got to do our part.
You know, so
we have to do our part.
I stay connected to be protected.
Do you still attend meetings?
I do on some rare occasions, not as much as I used to, but I do have a sponsor that I interact with. I do have a network of people that I can call when I'm going through something. And just to share briefly, it was back sometime in August, I think, I wanted to use. And I was very afraid, and I went to my boss and I was crying because it felt like that same feeling I had many years ago. And I called my sponsor, and she said, well, can you get to a meeting? And I said, this is a 12-step meeting. It's not the one that I normally go, but the bottom line is people were clean.
Yeah.
And I went to that meeting. I followed the suggestions,
Yes.
and I ran. And I went in there, and I said, this is a matter of life and death situation for me. Help me. You know, and that's, you know, what I want to make sure that's clear. I wanted to use, but I didn't because I utilized my resources.
Yes. How about you? Do you still attend meetings?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm totally involved. I mean, I'm still a man about being of service. We currently have a convention coming up. This is the levels that we go to for the recovery process. You know, I've been recently to the World Convention of Narcotics Anonymous all the way in Washington, D.C. recently. Was a great part of that. I go to meetings. I do service work. I reach out. You know, so yes, I'm an advocate for that. And I'll say this too, though, Gail. I know that people who live a lifestyle of recovery and sobriety, that it does not take that for some people. Some people have other avenues. I'm not saying that this is the only way.
Right.
I always want to be clear about that. This is the way that it has worked for me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm grateful for.
Me as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, boy. So we're going to close. But I want you to look into the camera and talk to that person that doesn't know they're getting ready to cross that imaginary line. That person just last night crossed that imaginary line, or that family that has a member or a friend or a child and they don't know what to do. Talk to that person.
I think I want to say that help is available, that actually you're not a bad person. We just do bad things. You can live a life of being clean or sober, whatever your situation is, and it does require intervention. It requires some type of intervention. Seek some kind of help through treatment services or outpatient services, and just don't give up. Don't give up, no matter what. If you have to go to treatment again, do it. You know, but the most important thing is recognizing that something is different about you, but also remembering that if you continue to use, it's the possibility that you could die.
Jails, institutions.
Seek help. Seek help. You don't have to
Yeah.
be ashamed. The shame is just trying to keep it a secret. You're not keeping a secret. Somebody knows. And I've been there. I have been there. And being clean is one of the most successful things that could happen in my life, and I thank God for it. I wouldn't change it for anything. I'm not the same person, but that's okay. And I'm not a good person, the best person, but I do bad things. So seek some help, and it can happen for you. It can happen. It is possible. It is possible. If you're struggling, get your resources. Call in whatever state or county you're in and seek some help, some intervention. And I think that once you get this thing in your system, you'll want it. It works.
If you work it. Maureece, what would you tell
I was thinking about it when Terri was sharing. What I recognize about the disease of addiction is that it affects us in so many different ways. You know what I'm saying? You know, we insecure, low self-esteem, false pride, all those kinds of things that we already dealing with. And so our scapegoat or our way out is to take a substance so we can numb that feeling. What I've found to be true about so many people that say they want help is that I've recognized that they're dealing with a dilemma that they don't want to feel the feelings. You know, we want to blame mama, we want to blame daddy, we want to blame the girlfriend, we want to blame the boyfriend, we want to blame our friends, whomever, for our dilemma. And what I've learned how to do was look that man or that woman in the mirror and say, I'm the root. It is me. You know, my problems begin with the person that I'm looking at in the mirror. And that if I can get with that focus, I'm better able to go on and accept the help that I know is readily available to me. Because sometimes family members don't understand. And so when I think of family, I don't just think about family that's bloodline. I'm talking about people who love and support me. You know, so as Terri said, help is available. You may not believe that it's so. We always want to think that we need it instantly, quick, fast, and in a hurry. But I just recommend anyone follow the process. Allow someone to help you because it can be done. We do recover. I have. Thank you.
We do recover. 32, 32,
31.
31. Oh, this has been so good. And I just want to say to you, thank you. Because you have always been there for me. And it didn't matter what I was going through, how ugly it was. You've always been there. And it could be times that I haven't spoken to you in a long time. And I could call you and you go, baby, what's wrong? Baby this, baby that. I got you. It's okay. It's going to be okay. And you are one of the 2 people in my life that I can tell anything to, and I don't feel like I'm being judged.
And I just want to tell you, thank you. I want to say thank Gail because Gail was my first lady that I mentored. 30-something. We have about 30-something years together. It's more than 32 because we both were going back and forth out using. So we have a long time together, but she will call me. And I thank her because it gives me an opportunity to share some things with her that I can utilize myself or enhance myself as a person. And she's always been very special. You've always been very, very special. And you've grown considerably in this process. So thank God for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So in closing, this is Gail Estella Survival Podcast. Tell me one thing that has helped you survive, Terri McClerklin.
I'm going to have to say my relationship with God. There's no other way I can say it. Early on, if you would ask, I might have said something else, but it's been God over the years and my relationship, how it has grown and grown and grown and helped me in many, many areas, and that's who I go to first, and then a person, but it's God.
How about you, Maureece?
I didn't get here by chance. I'm here because my steps have been ordered. For all the blessings that I've been able to receive, it has been by the power that was always so much bigger than me.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't plan none of the things that I have successfully achieved in my life. So I'm here because he said so. There you go.
Oh, boy, I hope you have enjoyed this segment. This has been so good. This has been so good. And I need to plug myself. Again, I want to celebrate me for celebrating, for achieving 32 years of sobriety, 32 years of clean time, because like I said earlier, getting clean was hard for me, y'all. It was hard. But God, but God,
That's right.
but God. And If you haven't purchased your copy of Through It All, I suggest that you do, because all of the things that we talked about, the insecurities, the feelings, the addictions, for me, the abuse, the grief, and the things that kept us using. But through it all, we can still stand.
That's right.
Through it all, we still stand. So follow me on Gail Estella on Facebook, Gail Estella 1 on Instagram, and Gail Estella Speaks on Instagram. I got 32 years of sobriety. Yay! Have a great day, everyone.